Hi, this week we're going to look at what is it about the horse's gait that actually makes them so athletic. The horse has many adaptations to make its gait very energy efficient and allow it to have both these bursts and power of speed as well as endurance. One of the really obvious adaptations is when the early horses evolved, their multiple toes were reduced into a single toe and hoof. So this actually makes the horse's hoof a lot lighter than even a cloven hoof. Many conformational features mean that the centre of gravity of the horse's limb is up near the point of rotation of the limb. This is why all the big muscle mass is higher in the limb on the horse, and it's really only lightweight structures like the bones, tendons and ligaments that are in the lower part of the horse's limb. The largest muscles around a horse's front limb are actually around the shoulder and the elbow, with a much smaller muscle mass in the forearm. And below the knee, there is virtually no muscle tissue. Of course, this becomes really important when you're looking at leg injuries because those structures that are so very important are also very exposed and not protected by muscle mass. Long tendons transmit the force of the muscle from the upper limb to the lower limb. Tendons are so much lighter than muscle, so really the hoof, the pastern area is only about 1% of the horse's weight. So you can see what a lightweight structure the lower limb is. Of course, when we're riding, if we're applying heavy bandages or heavy boots, this actually shifts the centre of gravity and will make the horse's gait less efficient. One of the really special things that happens in the horse's limb is that these strong tendons and ligaments actually store energy. So the muscular work of a galloping horse is actually halved by the stored kinetical movement energy in these ligaments and tendons. So as the horse places its leg down, basically it provides a rubber band effect to enable it to catapult the leg back forward using half the energy that it would need otherwise. So when the forelimb hits the ground, a lot of that energy is stored then in these structures, in these elastic structures behind the horse's limb. And that is then used to catapult and move that limb forward, which is why it needs much less energy from the muscle. So in fact, this catapulting action with stored energy allows those muscles involved to be about 1/100th of the size they would need to be if there was no stored energy to move that leg forward. One of the downsides to this efficiency, again, is the lack of protection on the legs, and damages to ligaments and tendons really account for so much of lameness in not only performance horses, but also companion horses. As a consequence, injuries to the lower leg must be taken seriously. Even if they seem minor, it really is worth getting a vet to check that none of these structures are involved. It's also quite common for these injuries to reoccur, particularly if you haven't let that injury repair itself for long enough and correctly. So again, yes, they're extremely efficient, but we've got to be very mindful of what damage that can be done to these structures in the legs and how much it will affect the horse. So it's our job to recognise it and allow repair to occur and get that seen to by a vet as soon as you can. So clearly our aim in rehabilitating any injury in the lower leg here is to try to reduce the risk of this being a chronic problem or a reoccurring problem. We can do this by, one, involving a vet earlier rather than later, allowing them to do a diagnosis so you can truly see the damage. It's very hard to recognise damage just on your eye, and we really need to look into structures to see if anything's occurred. it's really important that the horse gets the rest it needs to be able to recover from any injury in these tendons and ligaments. It's really important. Imagine yourself twisting your ankle. You might look fine to everybody else walking around and even having a little jog, but it doesn't mean you can get back on the tennis court or the basketball court yet. So we need to allow at least our 6 to 8 weeks, even in minor cases for leg injuries. If we stop the horse being able to store this energy correctly and move symmetrically, we're really risking its future performance. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to click like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll speak to you next week about the last in this series of the athletic horse.